This is the Rest of Everest video podcast, an almost unabridged expedition experience. Episode 36, the highest theater in the world.
Hey, you.
Well, hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Rest of Everest video podcast. I'm John Miller. I just want to kind of sheepishly say I don't have the Chinese slideshow out yet. Those at least 2 episodes there, those bonus episodes. I think I bit off a little bit more than I could chew right away. I will get them out, but they're just not ready yet. I sure apologize to everyone for that. Hope I didn't jump the gun too quickly on that. Had a lot of business projects come through this week, and so I really got slammed with those. But I really am looking forward to getting the Chinese slideshows out. So, another thing I just want to say thank you to everyone who rose to the challenge and wrote some fantastic reviews of the podcast on iTunes. Those just really help, and quite honestly, I just enjoy reading them, so thanks for that. Okay, now, let's head back up to base camp, and let's check in with another camp that I spent a lot of time with, the Royal Navy and Royal Marines camp. Here we go. Alright, here's a reused shot from the windstorm. This is the exterior of the Royal Navy and Royal Marine camp.
Dave Happington, what did you say? Big as possible! Big! We're not in an IMAX cinema.
We haven't even got sound.
Well, I'm trying to be in an IMAX cinema. I'm just beaten
You
back.
know there will be one someday. It'll be built underground.
Yeah. No, come on, big screen. Andy, we use the big one, mate.
Okay, so we are setting up
Dave, before we get
a movie theater here.
rules of the game are, you set it up, put it all back together again afterwards.
I was in here at 7 o'clock the morning after the last one.
After.
No, excuse me. Light. Don't want to waste the generator. Power.
That's Dave there. Big Dave. Very tall guy. Brilliant climber. Alright, so what we're trying to do here is trying to set up this high altitude cinema. We are very excited because we figured out that obviously my computers could play DVDs, and they had brought with them a small little LCD projector. So they were down from Advanced Base Camp for a while, resting, recuperating, and so we were trying to figure out a way to pass the time, and as the weeks went on, we became more adventuresome. There's the projector.
Rich, have you got the tops there? Yeah, and a seat, please.
I spent a lot of time at this camp too. These guys were all good friends of mine.
Just need a fan cable for it.
That fellow in the blue coat, that's Andy, and he was actually the team doctor. Who wants to be a millionaire? He helps me out in the future. You'll see in some future episodes. As the time goes on, my health worsens and I fall apart.
We met when we came over before.
It's a small price to pay, Dave.
Captain.
Yes.
Not an issue, mate. You carry on filming.
Photograph taken when we came before.
Not an issue.
That person born in Sichuan province. That guy is Tibet.
Yeah.
Came from Chinese era.
Now this team was fairly large. They had a lot of people. They had, I think, 10 climbers. They also had a whole team of Sherpas, and they had
Dr. Huang.
there's a woman in blue there. That is their press officer. There she is. That's Fiona, one of the few women at base camp, and she went by Fee, and she was really great. I really enjoyed spending time with her and the rest of the team.
They are all come from
They had a lot of communications equipment, but unfortunately their laptops that they had, I've mentioned before that hard drives up at base camp were very unreliable. The high altitude really had some severe effects on certain manufacturers of hard drives, and mine luckily didn't have any problem at all at base camp, and so they ended up having their computers were all sort of crippled, and they actually had some solid state flash hard drives curried into base camp from, I want to say, Japan, but in any case they came into Kathmandu and were hand carried up to base camp. but because this is 2003, flash drives were very small back then, and it basically allowed them just limited their activities on the computers to basically email. And so they had grand plans of editing all this video and whatnot. So I did my best to step in and help them out, and we filmed a lot at their camp, and I was able to edit a lot of material for them and send it back. And as I understand, some of the news stories that I helped edit for them were actually personally shown to the Queen of England, so that was pretty exciting.
With your computers and your little beepity beeps and all. Hey, this is it. Is anybody responsible for the largest cinema in the world here?
These guys, this was an interesting camp because they were military, and you have to remember that 2003, especially this is May 2003, the war in Iraq was still very new, and the war in Afghanistan, had been going on for a couple of years, and so a lot of these guys had been on active duty, around the world in Afghanistan or Iraq before coming to Everest. So these guys had all been away from home for a long time. And for some of them, they were there, this was their job to be there. Others had, volunteered or had been picked for this special assignment to climb Everest. So you had just a whole range of different people and personalities and experiences, and they were a great group of people. And they had enough beer to quench the thirst of just about anyone at base camp. It was pretty amazing. They also had a lot of Mars bars.
See, that is perfect clarity, isn't it? Don't you think?
It doesn't need to be bigger, does it?
We can even move it back a bit further.
Well, what's the point moving it back further?
You get a big picture. Get a bigger picture.
But, yeah, alright, but why? When...
Because we've got that many people watching it.
And CCTV is a national TV station, so
I don't mean to be picky, but sorry, to cut this cable ties, we can have the whole thing up, can't we?
yeah.
What do you think?
Well, I think...
Put it up and out, let's see what's like. Let's see what's going
I just made my TV program
You can see how into this everyone was, because this was a real project. And when you're at base camp, there's not always a whole lot to do, because base camp is meant for rest. Base camp is not meant for active climbing. And Dave here was obsessed with getting the largest picture possible, and they had these large banners promoting their expedition, which the back side of them were all white and were perfect screens. And so here is everyone trying their best to occupy themselves with a very interesting project.
Do some more string. We'll retie that one in a different way.
So I'll go get some from next door.
Sorry, mate. Sorry.
Almost there, huh?
Aye, for sure. We want it big. So how come I'm the film star of this then, John?
Because I'm standing on this side of the table.
Fair one. Jake's writing his email. It's been 3 hours of doing that. I was 3 hours writing my email as well. Modern technology sees passers by in the UK so far.
So, if you can introduce yourself in your comment.
yeah.
How do you mean?
Okay, you can hear a lot of voices in the background. There's that group of people. Several of those people are from a Korean team, and they just came by to say hello and to just talk with the team and see what was going on. You had a lot of that happening. You had a lot of just teams all coming and joining together and just having just really interesting conversations. Here we are, people from all over the world, and everyone was just joining together and coming up with these just incredibly entertaining and interesting conversations. It was just an amazing experience for me to be a part of that.
Actually, it made it more interesting.
Andy here was actually somewhat grounded from climbing for a little bit. He was experiencing some sort of blindness. He had some sort of problem with his eye. one of his eyes. It cleared up, but it was pretty scary.
Big sort of a flag.
It's one of those altitude issues where you get weird problems that can creep up at high altitude.
How's your eye? Still got a blind spot in the middle. Seriously.
So this is where your
Yeah, this is chocolate.
Do you have the DVD? We still have to test to make sure that that region will work.
One of the things also that the Korean team was talking about with the Royal Navy or Royal Marines here was that they had these flags outside of their camp. And again, you have to remember, this was a military team. They were a military expedition. And they had all these flags up outside their camp. Well, the Tibetan Mountaineering Association and the Chinese Mountaineering Association came up and were very wary of this military team being there. And so they made them take down their flags and were actually threatening to boot them out of China, thinking that they might have been doing some sort of espionage activities. Well, that wasn't the case at all. These guys were climbers. That really was what they were there for. But they did have all this technology, all these satellite terminals, so they could send email back and make phone calls and do some video conferencing back home. But just to provide everyone with updates to the expedition, that really was all it was.
Very smart.
They all wear their army uniform.
Yeah.
When we saw you outside of the uniforms, we thought we had to go. We thought the TMA
TMA is horrible. But you know, in China, there are always many rules.
Yeah.
Concert light, so you shoot their sunlight.
you'd be saved to the chair.
Yeah, that was, in a way there they were kind of expressing the sentiment of most people at base camp, was that the TMA, the Tibetan Mountaineering Association, which actually was a Chinese governmental organization, it really was fairly difficult to deal with.
What's the sound, isn't it?
Violence, bad language, and subnudity. Yes, we like this film. I like the bad language and violence. This one.
You not got a bit more thought in that, Dave, and we get rid of that table?
Well, we can get rid of those other tables.
Well, that's in front of the projector, Dave.
It's my trusty titanium G4 laptop.
Yeah, we don't have a sink here, can we? Just make it smaller. Wait, open up.
I am an Apple fanboy, so I have to make that very clear.
That's mine. That's yours.
Oh, cheers, fella. Andy, that's mine.
There's Swifty in the front there with the beard.
Back and sit on my shoulders.
So,
Small bloke to that seat.
small bloke to the front.
There's Jake. In other episodes, when I've mentioned that film was shot by the Royal Navy and Royal Marines, Jake there is the guy who filmed it.
Pass that computer a second.
Oh, I see.
Jake.
I'll tell you what, let's put it at the back because other people can. Mate, put it at the back there so people can sit on it. What?
Does anybody else want to use email this evening?
How many people have we got coming?
Can I make a phone call later?
Yeah, no, it was just we're going to just stop the
Who's
door.
dropping?
Stop the door. So that
Drop it, drop it. Drop the guts if that's any help.
He's like, out the corner.
You haven't seen me, I think it's
Ding, ding.
You haven't seen me.
You will see, so like, I live with Lancashire.
Just they got dragged down until it's calmed down. That's it.
You can start to hear it becomes a coughing convention. One person coughs and it just spreads around the room. You can't help yourself.
Have it perfect. Let's have it working.
There's only one leg on it.
No, we use a bit of paper or something, don't we?
Yeah.
That's good news, mate. Is anybody bothered that you've got the highest cinnamon NATO?
Maggie, Scotches. Mate, If you read the instruction manual, it'll do. Get out! No, it's not. I'm having. That's blood.
A lot of pride at this camp.
That bloodness. Once it starts, we'll refocus it.
Everyone trying to outdo the other person.
That is as best you can get it.
Thank you. You watching the film?
Cool.
There's Pat there. He was Scottish. We always joked he had quite an accent to me, and every once in a while it was difficult to understand what some of these guys were saying because of their different accents, and they joked that the Brits and the Americans were two people separated by a common language, which I always thought was a lot of fun.
On the blank screen. Do you think if you stand it on its end still you have some excitement for TNA? Is he coming to watch? Get back to the camera.
Oh, we're getting there. Alright, so they were very generous and opened up their movie night. They opened up their movie night to just about anyone who wanted to come by. It was great, and there were a lot of Sherpas, and there were a lot of Tibetans who would come, and let me tell you, these guys would whoop it up when there was nudity. These Tibetans, I think they were pretty embarrassed, and their reaction was just to start whooping it up to I think cover up their embarrassment, because a couple of the movies we watched, yeah, they did have some risque material. We watched this movie here we're setting up now is Swordfish with John Travolta, and there's a famous topless scene with Halle Berry, and then we also watched Enemy at the Gates, which has a well, at the time, you know, having not really certainly not watched television and been disconnected from, you know, everything from back home. Enemy at the Gates has a sex scene in it that was fairly shocking, I think, to everyone, and you just weren't used to seeing nudity at that point. You had been fully clothed, literally day and night, 24 hours a day for, geez, it was about nearly 6 weeks at this point. And it was just amazing how much of a juxtaposition in culture it was.
Dave just breathing on it.
Oh, you got to keep that computer from shutting all the way, because it'll just go to.
So, you know, I can say the Tibetans were uncomfortable, but I want to say that we were uncomfortable too. Of course, some of the guys weren't uncomfortable, but I was, and some of my other friends who were there. Certainly Rupert and Julian, you know, friends from another episode there back. We all commented on that it was quite shocking.
Is that Harry Patterson?
What do you reckon on the quality, John? It's a film, the beginning of the film is meant to be like this. Is it? Yes.
Swordfish. It's a great film if no one out there has seen it.
You know the problem with Hollywood is? They make shit. Unbelievable, unremarkable shit. Now, I'm not some grungy wannabe filmmaker that's searching for existentialism through a haze of bong smoke or something. No, it's easy to pick apart bad acting, short-sighted directing, and a purely moronic stringing together of words that many of the studios term as prose. No, I'm talking about the lack of realism. Realism. Not a pervasive element in today's modern American cinematic vision.
All right, so how do you like that? John Travolta talking about realism at Everest Base Camp. How's that for surreal? Well, hope you guys enjoyed that episode. Didn't get much look outside, but not all of time spent at Everest is spent staring at the mountain. It is actually quite a personal experience with just a lot of other people. So I'm glad I was able to fit this episode in and show kind of another way to pass the time. So, all right, next episode, we go over to the Chinese camp. They're the biggest camp at base camp at Everest on the north side. And we check out a live broadcast they did with their CCTV, their state television channel, CCTV1. And apparently it was a live broadcast to hundreds of millions of Chinese. So, and when I mean hundreds of millions, I don't mean 200 or 300 million. I mean 4, 5, 6, 7, 800 million people. So that was definitely an interesting experience. So I look forward to showing all of that to you next week. So stay tuned, stay subscribed, and we'll see you next week, everyone. The Rest of Everest is downloaded all over the world every week. If you enjoy watching and would like to show your support, then take a look at my website. Aside from having lots of additional blog entries from the expedition updated every week, there's this little donation button on every page. Now, many of you have pressed that button, and your generous contributions are helping to cover my hosting fees. If you haven't donated but would like to, then just contribute any amount. In return, I'll give you access to the video and audio dispatches I sent out while we were actually at Everest. It's pretty interesting stuff. Contribute $25 or more, and I'll even throw in an iPod-compatible version of the film Everest: The Other Side. That's the project the entire podcast here is based on. As always, our announcer is Marlon May, and our music is provided by Wendy Wu. Check her out at wendywu.com. Thanks so much, everyone, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for watching The Rest of Everest. For more information on the expedition, please visit therestofeverest.com.